Taeyoung's office. Namjoon, placing a stack of magazines on the table. Your father has seen this, Mr. Kim. He asked me to let you know that he expects you at dinner on Friday. And of course, you're not to come alone. His friendly smile remains unchanged, his gaze soft and free of any pressure. Taeyoung picks up one of the magazines, clutching it in his hands. The headlines scream in bold letters. Cinderella for the air! Who is this mysterious commoner? Love or scandal? Taeyoung clashes with family traditions. The pages are filled with photographs of him and Jungkook, one where they're walking hand in hand down the street, and another taken at a cafe, where Jungkook is laughing wholeheartedly while Taeyoung looks at him with affection. Taeyoung coldly, pressing his lips together. My father has never interfered in my relationships. Especially not because of things like this. Namjoon, with a slight smile. And he isn't interfering now. He just wants to meet him. You know he has always defended your freedom of choice, but this is the first time that. He trails off as Taeyoung tensely closes the magazine. Taeyoung restrained. The first time someone in his circle decided to meddle in my life? Namjoon gently. More like the first time the press has decided to put on a show. Your father just wants to make sure you're doing well. Taeyoung leans back in his chair, staring at the magazines. Namjoon's words sound sincere, but a faint irritation is already bubbling in his chest at the thought of the upcoming meeting. Namjoon gives a slight bow, as befitting the secretary of such a powerful man, and heads toward the door. His footsteps are silent, as if he doesn't want to disturb Taeyoung's space, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Evening. Neon lights illuminate the narrow streets. Taeyoung, having stayed late at work, pulls up to a bar and notices a nervous Jimin standing by the entrance. Jimin anxiously but trying to smile. Taeyoung! Promise me you won't overreact, okay? Taeyoung warily. Jimin, you know that never works. What happened? Jimin sighs and steps aside, letting him through. Jimin, just go inside. It's fine now. Taeyoung quickens his pace. As he opens the door to the bar, the sound of voices fills the air, but his eyes immediately land on one corner. Jungkook is sitting on a couch, dabbing his lip with a napkin, while Hoseok, looking worried, speaks to him quietly. Taeyoung rushes over. Taeyoung sharply. What happened? Jungkook looks up, and upon seeing Taeyoung, flashes a wide smile. He lowers the napkin, revealing a small cut on his lower lip. Jungkook, nonchalantly. It's nothing. I'm fine. Taeyoung, looking at him with concern. This doesn't look like nothing to me. Hoseok exhales quietly, realizing there's no point in hiding the truth. Hoseok. Some drunk guy at the bar started harassing him. Recognized him from the photos in the magazines and, well, started saying some nasty things. About you, Taeyoung. Taeyoung, clenching his fists. What exactly? Hoseok nervously. He called you a spoiled, entitled heir. Jungkook tried to ignore him at first, but Jungkook looks away, a small, wry smile playing on his lips. Jungkook, I wasn't planning to. He just got too pushy. Hoseok, it escalated into a fight. Jimin and I barely managed to pull them apart. The drunk guy's friends dragged him off and apologized. It's all under control now. Taeyoung felt a wave of anger rise inside him. The thought of someone daring to lay a hand on Jungkook was infuriating. He could already picture finding the man but the sight of Jungkook, still smiling, brought him back to the moment. Taeyoung sits down beside him and gently cups Jungkook's face in his hands. Taeyoung, whispering, trying to contain his emotions. You should never get into fights. Do you hear me? Especially over what people say about me. He leans in, pressing a soft kiss to the corner of Jungkook's mouth, careful to avoid the cut. Jungkook, quietly. I just couldn't stay silent, Taeyoung. Taeyoung, interrupting, looking straight into his eyes. It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is that you and I are here together. Please promise me. Jungkook nods, his smile fading for the first time that evening as he gazes at Taeyong seriously. Jungkook. Alright. I promise. Hoseok, who had been sitting nearby the entire time, exhales in relief and pretends to be deeply engrossed in his phone, tactfully giving them space. Taeyong pulls Jungkook into a gentle hug, holding him close. Lowering his head, he breathes in the comforting scent of Jungkook's hair. The warmth of the embrace calms the last of his anxiety, leaving behind only a quiet tenderness. For the rest of the evening, Taeyong remains noticeably pensive. His gaze often drifts off, though he tries not to let his worry show. After the bar, Hoseok and Jimin leave together, waving cheerfully as they bid farewell. Jungkook, looking up. Are you sure you'll get home okay? Taeyong, smiling. I didn't drink. I'll drive you home. The drive was quiet, filled only with the muffled sounds of the city at night. When they reached Jungkook's house, Taeyong parked the car and got out, walking him to the door. Standing at the doorstep, he gently brushed Jungkook's lips in a soft, warm kiss. Taeyong, gathering his thoughts. By the way, on Friday, my father wants to invite us to dinner. Jungkook's face instantly paled. Jungkook, whispering. What? Taeyong carefully took his hands, covering them with his own, and looked him straight in the eyes. Taeyong, gently. Don't worry. I'll never let anyone hurt you, not even my father. He just wants to meet you, that's all. Jungkook opened his mouth to say something, but Taeyong continued, squeezing his hands a little tighter. Taeyong, smiling. Trust me. My father has invested in hundreds of companies. He doesn't even remember which one you work for. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. Taeyong's words carried such confidence that Jungkook relaxed slightly, though a hint of nervousness lingered in his gaze. Jungkook, with a faint smile. If you say so. Taeyong, with genuine warmth. Trust me. I'll keep my promise. He lightly smoothed Jungkook's hair in a parting gesture, and watched as he stepped inside before heading back to his car. Taeyong's apartment. Taeyong sat in his study, illuminated by the soft glow of a desk lamp. On his computer screen, multiple tabs were open, articles, blogs, forums. He meticulously combed through the information, organizing it in his mind, until he stumbled upon a personal blog by a journalist, the very source of many rumors filled with harsh criticism directed at him. His fingers tapped rapidly on the keyboard, quickly locating the blogger's contact information. Pausing, he hesitated for a moment before picking up his phone and dialing Jimin. Jimin, cheerfully. Taeyong, even at night you don't let me rest. What is it this time? Taeyong, seriously. I need a table for two on Thursday at L'Etoile, the most expensive restaurant in the city. Jimin, in astonishment. Are you serious? That place has a 6-month waitlist. Is this for Jungkook? You know he hates pretentious places like that. Taeyong, coldly. Not for Jungkook. For someone else. I want them to feel out of their depth. Jimin, laughing. Oh, intriguing. Alright, give me a bit of time. An hour later, a message from Jimin arrived. Done. You'll love it, table with the best view. Wasting no time, Taeyong opened the chat with the journalist and sent a brief message. I want to meet. Thursday 8 p.m. L'Etoile. Does that work for you? The reply came almost immediately. It works. I've been waiting for you to reach out. Taeyong stared at his phone screen, his gaze hardening. He knew exactly what he needed to do next. Thursday. The restaurant exuded opulence, from its impeccably set tables to the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. Taeyong sat at a window-side table, his gaze fixed on a glass of water, which he lazily twirled between his fingers. When the journalist arrived, Taeyong lifted his head slightly and nodded without bothering to stand. The journalist, a middle-aged man with a self-assured smirk and brusque movements, sat down as if he owned the place, chewing gum with an air of arrogance. Journalist, grinning. Well, Mr. Kim, I didn't expect you to reach out yourself. I suppose we have a mutual interest. You know how it is, money solves everything. Taeyong didn't respond. He gave a slight nod to the waiter, and within moments, 2 steaks were placed on the table, barely cooked, blood pooling at the edges. The journalist's confidence faltered as he stared at the meat, his smile slipping for just a moment. He stopped chewing, visibly unsettled. Journalist, nervously. Huh? I see you have a taste for the exotic. So, what's your offer? How much to make me forget about you and your friend? Taeyoung finally looked up, his face emotionless. Taeyoung calmly. About me? I couldn't care less what you write. Keep going, if that's what you want. The journalist blinked in surprise, but before he could respond, Taeyoung continued. Taeyoung sharply. But I won't forgive you for the harm your articles have caused the one I love. The journalist's expression shifted to confusion, then to faint amusement. Journalist, with a smirk. What's this, a threat? What are you gonna do, like in the movies? Bury me in concrete? Taeyoung silently stared at him. Then, he picked up the knife, slicing into the steak with deliberate precision. Blood oozed from the cut, and he raised his eyes. Taeyoung quietly, with icy calm. Maybe concrete. Maybe asphalt. You know, we wealthy people have peculiar tastes. The journalist chuckled nervously at first but faltered under Taeyoung's steady, unblinking gaze. Shifting uncomfortably in his seat, he squirmed as the tension in the room thickened. He sprang to his feet, trying to save face. Journalist, indignantly. You're out of your mind. This is insane. Taeyoung raised an eyebrow slightly, his expression unwavering. Taeyoung evenly. Didn't you write that I'm a spoiled air drunk on power? The journalist opened his mouth several times, groping for words, but none came. At last, casting a nervous glance at the steak, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the restaurant, nearly colliding with a waiter on his way out. Taeyoung watched him leave, then shifted his gaze to his plate. He picked up his fork but never brought it to his mouth. His eyes lingered on the steak briefly before he set the utensils aside, as if he had lost interest. His eyes remained cold and impassive, but deep within them, a faint glimmer of satisfaction could be seen. Friday. The sun was setting when Taeyoung parked his car in front of Jungkook's house. He knocked, and the door opened almost immediately. Jungkook, flustered, standing in the doorway. I don't know what to wear. It's your father, after all. Smiling, Taeyoung gently ruffled his hair and leaned in to plant a soft kiss on his lips. Taeyoung calmly. Wear whatever you're comfortable in. Just be yourself. He stepped inside, taking in the cozy interior, and settled onto the couch to wait, while Jungkook got ready. A few minutes later, Jungkook emerged, dressed in a perfectly tailored gray suit with a black shirt that highlighted his figure. Taeyoung admiringly. Classic looks so good on you. You look amazing. Jungkook, shyly, with a small smile. Well, I do want to make a good impression. Taeyoung stood up and walked over to Jungkook. As he approached, he began to hum a soft tune, his voice filling the room with a gentle melody. He placed a hand on Jungkook's waist, perfectly framed by the suit jacket, and leaned in slightly. Taeyoung smiling. Let's dance for a moment. We've got a couple of minutes. Jungkook laughed but let Taeyoung take the lead. They moved gracefully, almost like a waltz, turning lightly in the small space. Jungkook, laughing. We're going to be late if you keep this up. Taeyoung stopped, kissed his temple, and rested his head on Jungkook's shoulder for a moment. Taeyoung sighing. You're right. It's time to go. They headed downstairs together, and Taeyoung opened the car door for Jungkook, letting him get in first. A few minutes later they were on their way to Taeyoung's father's house, ready for the important dinner ahead. The car glided through the gates, which opened smoothly before them. In the distance, the grand mansion loomed, surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens and bathed in warm lighting. Jungkook pressed closer to the window, his gaze betraying a hint of unease. Jungkook, whispering. It's a bit intimidating. Noticing his nervousness, Taeyoung stopped the car, leaned over, and gently took Jungkook's hand, brushing his lips against its back. Taeyoung softly. You're not alone. Everything will be fine. Jungkook nodded, relaxing slightly, and they stepped out of the car together, walking toward the house. Inside was just as imposing as the exterior: marble floors, a massive chandelier, and soaring ceilings. They were escorted to a spacious dining room, where an elegant table was set with perfection. A few minutes later, Taeyoung's father entered, a tall man with a commanding presence, his expression calm but confident. Taeyoung's father, politely, with a slight smile. "Good evening. You must be Jungkook. It's a pleasure to meet you." Jungkook, nodding, slightly shy. "Good evening. Thank you for having me." They took their seats, and dinner began. The conversation flowed at a leisurely pace. Taeyoung's father asked questions with an air of casualness, but Taeyoung, knowing him too well, sensed the underlying intent. Taeyoung's father: "Tell me a bit about yourself. What do you do? Who are your parents?" Jungkook, calmly, with a slight smile. "I work as a programmer. My parents live in another city. We keep in touch from a distance." Taeyoung, slightly tense, frowned but stayed silent, observing for now. Taeyoung's father: "And how do you see your relationship? How serious is it?" Before Jungkook could respond, Taeyoung firmly took his hand and looked directly at his father. Taeyoung, confidently: "Serious enough that we're getting married soon." Jungkook, startled, gulped down a sip of water too quickly and coughed. Taeyoung's father froze, his gaze turning analytical. A tense silence fell over the room. Taeyoung, coldly: "If you want to know something, ask me. I don't like this interrogation." Taeyoung's father leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. He studied his son intently, as though seeing him in a new light. For the first time, he noticed how much Taeyoung had changed, how resolute and ready he was to protect not only his own interests, but also the people he cared about. It was both surprising and, though he wouldn't admit it, a source of pride. Taeyoung's father, with a slight smile: "I apologize, Jungkook, if I came across as intrusive. That wasn't my intention." Jungkook, quickly, regaining composure: "No, it's all right. Really." The conversation shifted to more neutral topics: business, current events, hobbies. The atmosphere gradually eased, and the dinner ended on a positive note. On their way back to the car, Taeyoung squeezed Jungkook's hand, looking at him warmly. Taeyoung, softly: "You handled that wonderfully. I'm so proud of you." The car glides smoothly along the evening road, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the engine. Jungkook gazes out the window, his thoughts clearly preoccupied. Jungkook, thoughtfully: "Taeyoung." Taeyoung, curiously: "Yes?" Jungkook, turning to him: "What did you mean back there, about the wedding?" Taeyoung glances at him, a faint smile forming on his lips. Tenderness flickers in his eyes. He slows the car down and carefully pulls over to the side of the road. Taeyoung, softly: "I meant exactly what I said." Jungkook blinks in surprise, but Taeyoung continues, turning slightly to face him. Taeyoung, a bit bashfully: "I had planned to propose differently, more romantically. But since it happened this way, would you agree to be my husband?" Jungkook stares at him, his eyes shimmering. Leaning forward, he presses a brief but heartfelt kiss to Taeyoung's lips. Taeyoung, smiling gently, though a little nervous: "So, what's your answer?" Jungkook, laughing: "Isn't it obvious?" Taeyoung, still focused, raises an eyebrow. Jungkook, grinning widely: "Of course, yes." A radiant smile spreads across Taeyoung's face. He grips the steering wheel tighter, merging back onto the road, his gaze steady and confident, as if the entire world had aligned perfectly in that moment. They pulled up in front of Jungkook's house. Taeyoung stopped the car and turned toward him, waiting to hear what he had to say. Jungkook, smiling: "We never finished our dance." The words made Taeyoung's heart race. He nodded, opening his door and following Jungkook inside. In the cozy living room, Jungkook turned on some soft music. Standing opposite each other, Taeyoung extended his hand, never breaking eye contact. Taeyoung, gently: "So, where did we leave off?" They began to move, gracefully twirling as though continuing the waltz they'd started earlier. Taeyoung smiled, leaning in just slightly, and asked, Taeyoung, which country would you like to visit for our honeymoon? Jungkook, after a brief pause. Hong Kong. Disneyland. Taeyoung's smile widened, but before he could respond, their eyes met, and in the next moment they were kissing. The kiss was deep, filled with tenderness and passion. Taeyoung's hands gripped Jungkook's suit jacket tightly. He froze for a moment, as though struggling with himself, then abruptly pulled back. Taeyoung, voice shaking slightly, I should go. If I stay, I'm definitely going to take that suit jacket off you. And after that, stopping will be hard. Jungkook smiled, his eyes sparkling with playful amusement. Jungkook softly, You're so honest, Taeyoung. Taeyoung stepped closer, pressing a gentle kiss to Jungkook's forehead before turning and heading toward the door. Taeyoung at the door, with a smile. See you tomorrow. He left, leaving Jungkook alone with his thoughts and the faint melody still playing in the room. Taeyoung's apartment. Wrapped in a soft robe, Taeyoung emerged from the shower and headed to his desk. Turning on his computer, he quickly opened his browser and navigated to the journalist's blog. Every post connected to his name had been deleted. It was clear the journalist had been scared enough to remove the content. Taeyoung allowed himself a faint smile, satisfied that his seriousness had achieved the desired effect. The next day, Taeyoung and Jungkook invited Jimin, Hoseok, and Jin to dinner at a cozy restaurant. When everyone had gathered around the table, the atmosphere was light and friendly, filled with laughter and conversation. Taeyoung leaned forward slightly, drawing his friend's attention with his calm voice. Taeyoung smiling. Jungkook and I have something important to share with you. Jungkook, looking a bit shy, glanced at their friends before adding. Jungkook, with a warm smile. We've decided to get married. For a moment, there was silence at the table, and then it erupted with joyful exclamations. Jimin, excitedly. Are you serious? Congratulations. Hoseok, laughing, raising his glass. This is amazing. You both deserve all the happiness in the world. Jin, with a gentle smile. Finally, something so meaningful and beautiful. You two are the perfect couple. Glasses of champagne clinked together, accompanied by warm congratulations. The atmosphere grew even more festive. Jimin enthusiastically. If you need help planning the wedding, I'm in. Jungkook, smiling. Thank you, Jimin, but we want to keep it very intimate, just for our closest loved ones. Jimin, winking. All right. Then I'll make sure your intimate wedding is absolutely perfect. Taeyoung, gratefully. Thank you, Jimin. That means a lot to us. The conversation shifted to future plans, jokes, and fond memories. The evening passed in a warm, celebratory atmosphere, leaving everyone with a sense of joy and anticipation for what lay ahead. Wedding preparations. Taeyoung stood in front of the mirror in a fitting room. He was dressed in a black tuxedo that accentuated his slim figure and flawless sense of style. He adjusted the collar slightly, scrutinizing himself from every angle. Jimin, smiling as he examined him. You look stunning, Taeyoung. In this tuxedo, you'll definitely shine. Taeyoung, sighing. Thanks, Jimin. But why am I so nervous? It's just clothing. Jimin, winking. You're not nervous about the tuxedo. So tell me, have you two already had some intimate moments, or are you saving it for the wedding night? Taeyoung coughed abruptly, his face turning bright red. Taeyoung, awkwardly, avoiding Jimin's gaze. Not yet. These are Jungkook's first serious feelings, and I don't want to rush him. Jimin, impressed. Taeyoung, your patience is truly admirable. A proper gentleman. Meanwhile, across town, Jungkook and Hoseok were busy picking out Jungkook's wedding attire. Hoseok, browsing through the racks of clothing. You want something special, right? I know you don't like standing out, but a wedding is an exception. Jungkook skeptically surveyed the variety of tuxedos until Hoseok suddenly shouted. Hoseok, excitedly. I've got it! This is the one! He pulled out a white tuxedo, elegantly tailored with subtle satin accents. Jungkook doubtfully. White? Isn't that too flashy? Hoseok impatiently. Just try it on. A few minutes later, Jungkook stood in front of the mirror. The tuxedo fit perfectly, highlighting his natural charm and elegance. Hoseok proudly. Wow! Now you truly look like the star of the evening. Jungkook, smiling shyly, adjusted the cuffs. Jungkook, do you think Taehyung will like it? Hoseok confidently. He'll be absolutely blown away. Jungkook's apartment. That evening, Jungkook sat in his room, his phone resting on the table, its screen glowing with an open chat with his parents. His fingers trembled as he typed out a message. I bought you plane tickets. The reply came almost immediately. Mom, what's going on? Jungkook took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves, and quickly typed. I'm getting married. His name is Taehyung. The phone screen went still. No response. The minutes dragged on, feeling like hours, and with each passing second, Jungkook's anxiety grew. He tried to distract himself, but his eyes kept drifting back to the screen. Though he wasn't particularly close to his parents, he genuinely wanted their approval. He hoped they would understand and support his decision, especially since this moment was so important to him. 5 minutes passed, though it felt like an eternity. Finally, the screen lit up with a message. Mom, we're so happy for you. Dad, we'll gladly come. Wishing you both all the best. The messages made Jungkook freeze for a moment. He read and reread the lines, as though he couldn't quite believe his eyes. Quickly, he typed back. Thank you. Your support means so much to me. After sending the message, he set the phone aside and leaned back in his chair. A faint smile spread across his face, and for the first time that evening, a sense of calm settled in his heart. The wedding day. The small hall glowed with soft light, its walls adorned with elegant floral arrangements. Only the closest friends and family were present, those who truly shared in the joy of this moment. Taehyung stood at the altar, his gaze fixed on the door. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to appear composed. His heart pounded so loudly it felt like the guests might hear it. Then, the doors opened. The sound of footsteps on the marble floor silenced the room. In a white tuxedo, wearing a gentle smile, Jungkook entered. He looked as though he had stepped out of a dream, radiant, calm, utterly breathtaking. Taehyung involuntarily held his breath. This moment, this vision, it felt unreal. Taehyung to himself. How did I ever deserve him? Jungkook stopped in front of him, his eyes sparkling with sincerity and love. Taehyung couldn't suppress a soft smile, feeling his nervousness melt into certainty. The officiant stepped forward, nodding gently to both of them. Officiant. Taehyung, Jungkook, today you join your lives together as one. This is a promise of love, support, and fidelity that you give to each other. The guests listened silently, some with smiles, others dabbing at their eyes with handkerchiefs. Officiant. Taehyung, Jungkook, do you agree to stand by one another in joy and sorrow, in wealth and hardship, to love and support each other for the rest of your days? Taehyung, with firm conviction. I do. Jungkook, a bit shy but wholeheartedly. I do. The words rang out louder than any music. Jimin and Hoseok couldn't hold back their tears. Hoseok sniffling. Why is this so beautiful? Jimin, wiping his tears. I don't know, but it's so moving. Standing beside them, Jean stifled a laugh, pulling both into a hug and patting their shoulders. Jean, you're hopeless. Weddings are for celebration, not for crying. When the ceremony concluded, music filled the hall. A waltz began to play. Taehyung leaned slightly toward Jungkook and extended his hand. Taehyung smiling. Shall we dance? Jungkook smiled back, placing his hand in Taehyung's. Their movements were fluid, as if they had rehearsed this moment for years. Taehyung's eyes never left Jungkook's face. Taehyung, whispering. You can't imagine how happy I am. Jungkook leaned in slightly, whispering back. Jungkook. I can imagine. Because I feel the same way. As the music faded, the guests escorted them to the dining hall. Tables were decorated with white roses and candles. Guests raised their glasses, offering heartfelt toasts. Jungkook's mother, smiling, slightly nervous. Son, you look so happy, and that's all that matters. Take care of each other, alright? Taeyoung's father, with a gentle smile. Taeyoung, Jungkook, you are a true family now. I'm proud of you and hope you'll always support one another. The room was filled with laughter, congratulations, and joy. This day would forever remain in the memories of everyone present as one of the brightest and happiest moments of their lives. Honeymoon. The morning sun lit up the runway as the plane landed in Hong Kong. Taeyoung and Jungkook, tired but happy, made their way to their luxurious suite. The suite was enormous. 2 bedrooms, a spacious living room with panoramic windows, 3 bathrooms, and a design exuding sophisticated elegance. Jungkook, looking around in amazement. This is way too much. It's just the 2 of us, and this is like a whole apartment. Taeyoung, smiling, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. For you, I always choose only the best. Jungkook shook his head, still adjusting to the grandeur, but smiled as he headed off to change. They went downstairs for breakfast, enjoying the stunning view from the restaurant. The rest of the day was spent at Disneyland, laughing, taking photos, and soaking up the magical atmosphere. By evening, they returned to their suite, completely exhausted. Taeyoung, stretching. Today was perfect. I might have overestimated my stamina, though. Jungkook, smiling. You did great. And let's be honest, it was unforgettable. After dinner at the hotel restaurant, Taeyoung went to shower first. When he came out, he noticed Jungkook wasn't in the bedroom. Taeyoung, looking around, slightly worried. Jungkook? Hearing the sound of water coming from the other bathroom, he sighed in relief and returned to the living room. Just then, desserts and drinks for the couple were delivered to their suite. Taeyoung sat on the couch, turned on a movie, but couldn't focus, frequently glancing toward the bathroom door. When Jungkook finally emerged, he was wrapped in a towel, his expression a mix of shyness and quiet determination. Jungkook, softly. Are you really planning to watch a movie? Taeyoung, laughing nervously. Well, I just picked something light for the evening. And they brought us dessert. Jungkook stepped closer, his voice dropping to a tender whisper. Jungkook, smiling. I've been preparing for tonight. Taeyoung, flustered, instinctively leaned back as his heart started pounding. Taeyoung, stammering. I'm not sure I follow. Maybe it's because you're walking around in just a towel. Jungkook leaned closer, his voice barely audible. Jungkook. I'm ready. Taeyoung froze, his gaze lingering on Jungkook's face, taking in every feature. Slowly, he reached out and took Jungkook's hand, his eyes glowing with warmth and reassurance. Taeyoung, smiling gently. You know, we probably could have managed with just one bedroom. Jungkook looked at him and nodded, his voice steady. Jungkook. We're married now. I trust you. Taeyoung's heart swelled with happiness. He leaned in, kissing Jungkook tenderly, longer than usual. Without breaking their closeness, he gently led Jungkook by the hand toward the bedroom. The lights in the bedroom were dimmed, casting a soft, warm glow. Taeyoung let go of Jungkook's hand to close the door, then turned back to him. Jungkook stood still, a faint, bashful smile on his face. Jungkook, quietly. I'm a little nervous. Taeyoung stepped closer, placing his hands on Jungkook's shoulders, looking directly into his eyes. Taeyoung, gently. Me too. But this is just us. There's no rush, no expectations. Everything will happen the way you want it to. Jungkook nodded slowly, his gaze becoming more confident. He reached out, lightly touching Taeyoung's face, as though affirming his feelings. Jungkook, whispering, I want to be with you. Always. Taeyoung responded with a long, tender kiss. Their movements were deliberate, filled with sincerity, and every look was imbued with love. They moved slowly toward the bed, their closeness intensifying the warmth of the moment. Taeyoon, gently, his gaze never leaving Jungkook. I love you. You're everything I need in this life. Jungkook, feeling the warmth of his words, lowered his gaze slightly, but a genuine smile graced his lips. Jungkook, quietly, his voice trembling. And I love you. I never knew I could be this happy. In that moment, all tension melted away. What remained was a warm closeness, filled with trust and love.